The mail was heavy again today. 10 journals, each addressed to the truly cultivated and edited from an exclusively artistic viewpoint, send New Year's greetings, and 20 publishing houses announce that they are vigorously extending their celebrated lists. All of them speak in the same lofty, deadly serious language and present rosters of, quote, top names, end quote. All are fully aware of the new currents of our times, and all would be happy to make a little more profit. As happens every few years, a young novelist is extolled whose work deserves to be put alongside Green Henry, and so is a new lyric poet who is a true original and beyond question will soon be considered in the same class with Liliencrone and Mörike. There is a picture of him in the catalogue. All this, of course, is not new, and basically perhaps not especially vicious. I have found entertainment 100 times in just this sort of cultural country fare. On this particular day, however, it does not make me want to laugh or even to scold. A brief hour ago, I was out on the hills, looking at the clouds. Each one drifted past, or strode or swam, or danced by like a miracle, like a word or a song, or a jest or a solace from the lips of God, and pressed on eagerly into the distance, cradled in the cool, pale blue. And it was more beautiful, and sang more enchantingly than any songs printed in books. Now I had to come back to the flea market and commercial fair of the poets and artists and publishers, as though into a crowded room, where the air was terrifyingly oppressive. And all at once it seemed to me that I was wading hopelessly through a deep, dead sand. I was suddenly as tired as though from a fruitless, hectic day, and I rested my head in my hands and felt a malevolent melancholy assail me, like a fever from that jumble of, quote, culture, end quote, lying in front of me. In self-defense, I pushed the rubbish aside, took the lamp in my hand, and went up to my room where my many old books stand in tight-packed rows, and outside the windows sparrows and gulls fly. An old book is always comforting. It speaks out of the distance, and you can hearken or not. If suddenly great words flash out, you accept them not as you would in a book of today, not as coming from such and such a well-known author, but rather as something immediate, like a sunbeam or the gull's cry. And I read. I read in the Heisterbach Chronicle, in the pleasant, easy, good-humored Latin of the monk Caesarius, a little anecdote of the monastery. The Abbot Gebhard used to lecture every morning to the monks about God, God's essence and God's attributes. It must be that he did this not only as a scholar and a dogmatist, but also with a truly reverent feeling, for otherwise he would have been stricter and more severe with his pupils. As it was, these pupils believed that they had long since learned enough about the essence and attributes of God. They hardly paid any attention, but played the fool, daydreamed, and frequently went off to bed, as is indicated by a special chapter entitled De Temptatione Dormendiae, in which Caesarius represents falling asleep as a besetting temptation. The abbot went right on talking. Perhaps he hardly looked at his pupils, but one morning in the course of his lecture, his glance fell on the rows of auditors, and he saw his monks dreaming, staring, smiling, winking, and even wool-gathering, or a small ruse, a completely innocent small ruse, for this small man would not have been capable of any other sort. What he did was to pause, change the tone of his discourse as though introducing something new, and then Gebhard said, "The following incident occurred at the famous court of the King Artus," whereupon, apparently, all the sleepers awoke, his pupils, and the winkers and dreamers suddenly turned up alert, the whole audience leaning forward in attention, now avidly interested in an anecdote about King Artus. But the abbot gazed around, and saw what was in their eyes, and then he said in a good-natured reproof, "Alas, if I start to tell you a story about the court of King Artus, you open your ears and are full of attention. But if I wish to talk to you of God, you slumber." I put the old book back in its place and went to the window. In the blue mist below, the smooth lake lay in twilight. The window panes of the villages beyond flashed in the sunlight, and on the Thurgau mountains long, pale, narrow snowfields lay between the trees. Those mountains, separated from me by the lake, rose in such silent, solemn beauty into the veiled sky, and stood in such quiet, holy repose in approaching winter night, that it seemed to me if I were over there, I could be a holy man, and understand all the secrets of the earth. Over there the pale snow lay in a different fashion than on my roof. Over there the beech forest and the pine-black trees were indescribably beautiful, and reserved in a way I never saw in my neighborhood. Perhaps God himself walked over there along the slopes, and whoever met God there could touch him, and speak to him and look closely into the eyes of God. Yes, over there. Now here in my beautiful quiet village, on my hill in my woods, I do not dare to think of God. I do not touch God's hand, do not hear his step. I see God over there across the lake, behind the light mist. And just suppose I were now in one of our cities, in München, Zurich, Stuttgart, or Dresden. Is there any place in any of them where I could not be ashamed and terrified if God encountered me? Is not every house and every stone full of lustful longing for a story about King Artus? Only a few days ago an artist friend of mine asked me in what city it would be pleasant and agreeable to live. We took counsel and considered the names of many cities. We selected and rejected, but we could not find a city in which we would have liked to live permanently or even for a long period. Instead, we live one here, one there, in villages, in the mountains and country cottages, one in Tyrol and another on the coast, one on a heath and another on Lake Constance, and we do not venture to get together in the same place, nor can we find a city we would like to call home. Must it be this way? I have often asked myself, has it always been this way? But that is useless. Whoever has taken an honest look at what we call world history must know that every former time and race and culture is shut away from us by 100 seals and will remain forever mysterious. I stood and thought about the Abbot of Heisterbach, about God, and about King Artus. My eyes ran along the rows of books. Many of the books, at other times my favorites, were lifeless and had nothing to say to me, but here and there an old brown volume with leather back looked out at me alertly and challengingly. There they stand, arranged and waiting, and God is in each of them. But God does not speak at all hours, and often when I want to avoid God and begin some merry story, I am like one of the abbot's pupils, and instead of the delightful tale I was eager for, I see a sad, affectionate glance and hear a voice saying, "But when I talk about God, you fall asleep."
Bah. Like, subscribe, notification bell, join the herd.